Carro is with us. He is an attorney who specializes in premise liability. And John, let's talk about a couple of things that you and I said we never have heard in a courtroom. First of all, you have Mr. O'Connor, who represents Billy Mattei, Jean Mattei, saying, move to strike all of the comments coming out of his client's mouth, as she makes reference to the point that anything that we had reference to false imprisonment as not being important. How about that?
I've never seen a lawyer move to strike his own client's testimony. That's very damaging. But what's even worse is what she was saying. If I was a lawyer, I'd almost want to say that, but I'd never do that in front of a jury. She basically, it's almost she wiped out the false imprisonment claim by saying, why is this relevant? It's what happened outside. They weren't helping me, not what happened backstage.
Yeah, that's not important in her exact words or something like that.
That's a very important part of this case as far as Mr. O'Connor is concerned. In his opening, his pleadings, to give that up was what she did. I've never seen that.
And then let's go through 2.5 hours. She says that she was held backstage. Now, it seems as if she talked to the police, some Disney people who may have been saying, if she comes in hysterical, what happened? She even has a trauma team comes in from Disney, though they don't work for Disney. And then she goes in and out to the bathroom. Her daughter goes in and out and checks on the kids. Where were they being detained?
Well, there's no evidence of that. In fact, Disney, looks like a very caring corporate entity to have a trauma team on board when she's not physically injured, that someone went and visited the hospital, inquired at the hospital. Everything that's come out so far, and she's done, doesn't point to one single bit of evidence of false imprisonment claim. Well, and in fact, she was right when she said it's not about backstage, but she also has a claim here before the court about what happened backstage.
Well, apparently, you wonder how prepared she was for all of this. A couple of things she did, you and I were talking about it. What about her demeanor on the stand?
Well, she was, she had displayed the proper emotion when talking about the trauma of the event, but I think what happened as the afternoon went on is she became a little flippant at times, a little cute at times. She was digressing, questioning the lawyer, why is this, why is that? The judge had to explain things to her. She referred to her lawyer as Bob. Well, I mean, there's a familiarity that you don't want when this is a trauma to her. Her case is about a trauma to her. There has to be a consistency with her testimony. For her to change the emotions just like that, this is someone who once was in TV. Are jurors thinking that she's turning it on or off?
Well, that we saw a lot of. She was over at one point, she was smiling and pouting or whatever, and then she sighed, and then she went from that into something else. Speaking of Bob, he's trying to say, you and I didn't meet right after this incident happened. It was 2 weeks before you and I really got a chance to meet. And what does she say? But oh, Bob, that's not true. What in the world are you going to do with something like that?
That's having your foot in your mouth. When your lawyer projects a leading question like that, isn't it so? We didn't meet the next day, 2 weeks, and the client says no. Egg on your face. She had to have been prepared, but seemed to have lost it. And we'll see where this winds up. Well, but very interesting afternoon.
Mr. Wayme has got to be sitting down here just saying, well, strike off the false imprisonment. Let's see where we go. And then when she got into the area, too, about her emotional state. A lot of plaintiffs, perhaps, or people out there who might be considering suing, don't realize when you put in a claim like emotional distress, whether it's through negligence or intentional emotional distress, that your mental state is at issue and will come into that courtroom. Perhaps she wasn't aware of that?
She should have been. It's absolutely fair game. Oftentimes lawyers are accused of going too far with it, blaming the victim, but the impression was that for 1.5 years she'd been seeing the psychologists, the doctors from the Disney trauma. For it to come out on cross that they uncovered other things and you had a personal illness in the family, we'll see where the testimony goes, but if it comes out that a very small portion or not all of that treatment was related to Disney, it doesn't look good for her, because when they presented it on the direct case, it seemed like 1.5 years from the Disney trauma.
Well, you and I were speculating, too, about, or at least wondering about the issue about being traumatized for 1.5 years regarding that, but maybe those things happen. But also, the judge then turns, when she says, I don't understand that, what's the relevance of this? And the judge explains that in front of the jury. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Very unusual to answer a question of a witness on the stand for her benefit in front of the jury. Very unusual. And what the judge did was say that it was relevant as to the cost factor. It's relevant in a far bigger way, and that's to whether or not she's really traumatized from this event. That's the bigger factor. Very unusual set of events this afternoon.
Well, not only that, if she was really paying attention when he says the cost factor and all the rest of it, if it might have clicked in, and then she would have gone into more of the Disney aspect. I almost thought as much as that he was giving her too much of a hint of what was going on there, but she didn't pick it up.
No, she didn't pick it up. She should have, by listening to the judge, realized that, hey, stop asking questions. This is relevant. Just answer what the lawyer says. He said, Mr. O'Connor will get to question you, and he's raised these issues. He's telling her what the lawyer would like to be telling her. Talk about this. This is a part of your case, whether you believe it or not, and she should believe it. This was the claim. She is undermining her own case.
Well, now it's left up to Denise, if you will, and maybe we might be overreaching, but I don't know, based upon what our callers, their response just in looking at the very beginnings of this trial. She's got the burden now of trying to refocus everything back to the issues of the trauma, and then whatever the issues are regarding her children. But you also have testimony done in deposition where the children seem to say, we didn't believe that that Mickey Mouse was a real person. So it's like, where do you go with something like that? If you were the attorney, what are you thinking about tonight?
Well, you have to regroup. You have to get the emotion back. They attempted with her earlier testimony. She broke down. I mean, the lawyer had to be very happy about that. It created, being robbed at gunpoint is a very traumatic event.
Sure.
Let's not kid ourselves. And people react differently. And people need to seek treatment, and people need therapy for that. But we're now, a lot of things have happened this afternoon to take the focus away from that emotional testimony, if the jury found it compelling, emotionally compelling. I don't know. So now we have to see and if there is real evidence of trauma to the children. And they have to live with the fact that she's already testified, the grandmother, that it seemed to be a pretty caring environment within the Disney backstage area. There were women around her. They were aghast at what happened.